Has anyone heard of Sunrun? We do residential solar, and we just passed Tesla as at least #1 in market share. So I just started there, but it's a really fun, mission-driven company about going clean energy and usually saving money, especially if you live in a sunny state like Colorado. So talk today is about it was called Fear and Loathing in Product Management, but they changed it up a little bit. Didn't know if they appreciated the Hunter S. Thompson reference, but talk today is about overcoming kind of the life of the modern PM. So PM as a field is exploding, lots of people getting into it, and PM I think can be the greatest job in the world in the right organization. It's the greatest job in the world on paper, but a lot of times in reality it can be more of a tease. So the talk today is about strategies for especially young PMs or mid-level PMs to kind of overcome some of the obstacles and hurdles to kind of level up. So a little bit about my journey. I started at a subsidiary of DaVita Kidney Care. So we did a commercial product for nephrologists, for kidney doctors to use in their office. And when I got there, our net promoter score was -65, which is super bad if you're not familiar. It goes from -100 to 100. And one of my first customer visits, it was Halloween, and this nurse actually wore this t-shirt saying our product was called Falcon. It says, "Falcon Air, costume not found," to make fun of our product. So it turns out if people are wearing costumes to make fun of your product, that's not a good start. But they did the traditional thing, which is no UX design, no PMs, did it full developer driven, and so they were in a bad spot. But we were actually able to turn it around and do some really cool stuff. We launched, this was like right when the iPad came out, we launched an iPad app for doctors to see their patients on dialysis, which usually involves seeing 50 patients in an hour, so they're moving all around. And we launched a really slick way for them to do it on their iPad, and it was a big hit because they could get all their notes done at the clinic, whereas previously they would take them home and do them at night. And then you had people like Dr. Fatum sending us photos of very questionable man bags. So we felt good about that one. I also worked at a startup called Cake. We created a real simple way for Colorado small businesses to buy work comp insurance online using natural language processing. So literally someone could go to our website and type in, "I sell pizza emoji," and get their insurance in 5 minutes. And it was super cool for the small business owners because they got their insurance really fast, and it was great for the insurance company because we use natural language processing instead of people, so it saved them a lot of money. And then they didn't have to work with shady insurance agents. I also created the website for Bar Blackheart, Denver's craziest karaoke bar, but some of the language on there is pretty strong, so visit at your own will. Anyway, current state of PM. Do you guys know Marty? Anybody familiar with Marty Kagan? All right. So Marty was giving a talk recently, direct quote, "Average skill level of product manager has dropped significantly over the last several years." And he kind of contributes this to a few things, but one has been the advent of every kind of company is realizing they are a technology company, so no matter who you are, you're using technology to allow folks to consume your product. And what they've done is they're doing these digital transformation. So they're taking their old IT processes and they're trying to figure out how to be a more product-driven company. And so they're theoretically getting rid of business analysts, and they're hiring folks called product owners. But basically they're taking folks and they're sending them to like a 2-day certified Scrum product owner class, which is fine, it's a good class, but it's really like, how do you manage the backlog in Jira? Like, how do you do sprint planning? And this is like the 5%, so the really small part of the job. It's not what we want our product managers to actually be doing. So part of it, we've had a whole bunch of new folks and not enough training. And there was a great post on Product Management Reddit, which is also a good product community. It's from an engineer who's worked at Google for almost 10 years, and it's a letter about how product management sucks there. And it's interesting because you think of Google as a really high-performing company, but he has a lot of good quotes like, "I've worked here and most of the PMs have like zero training or experience." So actually people pulled from other parts of the organization. They're pulled from marketing, or they're pulled from UX design, or etc. And uses words like general incompetence. Like, they don't even know how to create the basic thing I need to actually take this and build some software out of it. And one of the points he makes, which I tend to agree with, was there's no growth opportunity. They don't have the ability to learn how to properly do their job. He argues in part because we don't have any product leaders who know how to do their job. And that's an interesting point because everywhere, I've only worked at one company where my head of product had actually been a product manager before. Everywhere I've worked, it's generally been someone who's worked there a long time and they know the business really well, and then they get put in charge of product management, and now they're in charge of coaching up and hiring folks, and they hire a lot on potential because it's a new field, but then the junior people come in and they get no coaching and no guidance. I also think it's really difficult to get good at something if you've never seen what good looks like. And so that's why I have chickens up here, because there are these people who their job, it's called chicken sexting. It's not lewd text messages. It is looking at chicks to determine their gender. And apparently this is something that they can literally not explain how to do. They literally, they have to, you just have to watch them do it. You just have to watch them do it. And then if you watch them do it, you'll kind of pick it up, and then you start to do it yourself and you get feedback. So there's certain things, no matter how many books or articles or podcasts you listen to, it's much easier to get good at something if you see what good looks like. But I feel like a lot of the junior and mid-level PMs, they're not even given that opportunity, because a lot of the people who are working as senior product managers and heads of product have never really done the job before. Also, I don't know if you all know John Cutler. He writes a lot on Medium about product and development. I actually had like a one-on-one consulting thing with him, and he said, I love to ask teams, like development teams without the PM there, if you could take the PM's salary as budget, like would you keep the PM or would you just take that extra budget? And a lot of teams say, no, we just take the extra budget. So kind of a downer to start, but we'll talk about hopefully some strategies and practical tips to overcome. So number one would be try to find something you really care about, which sounds a little bit obvious, but this is something I've experienced in my own career. Usually care about looks like you really care about or connect with the customers of the product. You really care about the problem space or the vision of the company, the vision that they're selling, or you care about the company itself. And oftentimes this is not obvious, so the other advice I like to give is get out there and interview, because when I worked at DeVito for almost 7 years, I didn't really know what the heck dialysis was or kidney care. It's not something I thought I would be into, but once I got there, I was deeply, deeply passionate about it. I connected with the customers, and the more time I spent with them, I realized that there are these folks who got into healthcare because they wanted to help treat patients, and modern healthcare is really complicated, and now they feel more like they're just doing all this random stuff for the insurance company or because of government regulations, and they didn't feel like they could be doctors. And so that really resonated with me. So I would fight tooth and nail all the stakeholders, our legal department, to push for features on behalf of the customer. But these are things you're generally not going to do if you don't really care about the customer or the problem space. A great company story on this is the story of Spanx. Spanx was founded by Sarah Blakely. It's a great origin story because she does all this like mildly kind of like insane stuff. So to like quickly recap, she is selling fax machines door to door. So she's a door to door fax machine salesman, shitty job. And she has this idea for the product, right? So the first thing she has to do is convince a manufacturer to create like some prototypes of what Spanx would be. And of course, all these manufacturers are men. So she's like cold calling these men, trying to convince them to create the prototype. And a bunch of them keep saying no. Finally, she finds one guy who he has daughters, and he talks about it with his daughters over dinner. And they convince him like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea, like create the prototype. So she gets some of these prototypes, and then she cold calls the big department stores like Nordstrom's. And she finds a buyer at Nordstrom's who says, I will give you half hour if you come down to Dallas. So she buys a flight down to Dallas, and she's giving the pitch to the buyer at Nordstrom's, and halfway through she can tell like, oh, like she's just not into it, like she's not getting it. So she's like, hey, come into the bathroom with me. And so she shows her like what she's wearing and like the panty lines, and she comes in the bathroom, then she changes into the Spanx. And the lady like sees like, oh my God, like this makes sense. Like this is a really cool product. And she agrees to buy, like enough for 8 stores, so kind of like a trial, and put Spanx in 8 stores. So then Sarah realizes that they're not going to buy more unless these do well. So she actually calls up all her friends in all these different cities and bribes them to go to the store to buy Spanx. And the local store that she's at She quits her job as a fax machine salesperson, and she literally spends all day at Nordstrom's watching the customers, seeing what they buy, and then she realizes like where the store put the Spanx, she doesn't think they're actually like customers are going to realize what they are. Like she thought they were not in the right spot. And so what she did is she literally went to a different store and she bought like some tables and just took them into Nordstrom's and set them up by the registers and put the Spanx on them. And of course, all the employees just assumed it was like someone from corporate so that they could be in the right position so that customers would purchase them. And these are all like mildly, crazy things to do, but these are like examples of things you will do if you are deeply passionate about the problem space. Whereas if you're not deeply passionate, you're just not going to do a lot of this stuff. So a lot of it will come naturally if you're really into what you're doing. I've never tried Spanx. I was Tanya Harding for Halloween, so I did have some experience with pantyhose. The second thing is to talk to customers. I am consistently dumbfounded by the fact that people say this is the most important thing and then how few actually do it. So this is one of the most powerful things you can do. I would challenge everyone in here to at least talk to one customer every week. It'll build empathy and motivation. Like this is, again, like how you're going to build up that real strong desire to push through walls to make your product successful. You're going to collect amazing stories. Stories are a really underrated tool of the product manager, right? If you have a great story about either how your product failed and didn't deliver on its value or how your product succeeded, those are great tools to use to motivate your engineering teams and your leadership to get something done. Talking to customers is also how you become an expert, right? At some point, some dev is going to turn to you during a meeting and ask you a question about a feature, and they want you to make a decision on the spot. And don't make the decision if you don't know the answer, and don't make stuff up, because then you'll lose credibility. But if you can answer on the spot based on a direct observation of a customer, that's when you start to look like a badass. That's when you start to get a lot of confidence from your dev team. In JFDI, a lot of folks have this, their company says, well, we shouldn't talk to customers for X or Y or Z reasons. I've heard a lot of excuses. They're almost never valid. So JFDI is just fucking do it. Just make it happen. Go outside of process if you need to. When you can actually bring back real insights, that's going to be tremendously valuable, and they'll want other folks to replicate that behavior. One of the stories that I collected while I was at Cake, the work comp insurance, right? I was not super into work comp insurance, believe it or not. But I did get really passionate once I started talking to small business owners, because I realized how tough it is to start a business, how much ambiguity there is. And I would just hear these stories. So this company, ProCraft Signs, they did all the signs for the new Whole Foods downtown, like the neon sushi sign. And this lady's story was, I thought, kind of incredible, because she talked about how she didn't have this insurance because she didn't need it, but Whole Foods wouldn't take her as a client unless she had it. So she was trying to get it like that day, and she put her phone number into some website, and it blasted it to all these insurance agents. She was getting like phone calls, and this was at her son's kindergarten like reading thing. And once she found us and was able to get her insurance in 5 minutes, she was like, "This is amazing! Like, I was so glad to find you guys." So this is one of those stories I could take back to our board of directors, to our investors, to our dev team, and tell them about how the product we created made a meaningful difference in someone's life. So these are highly motivating, but you're not going to get them unless you talk to customers. 3 would be don't go to conferences. So conferences are fine, but all the talks are going to get posted online anyway, and a lot of the talks are going to be hit or miss. So they're fun for networking, but there's better ways. Most companies have a limited budget for educating yourself. There's better ways to spend it. Some of the best, the Silicon Valley Product Group Workshop. That's Marty Kagan's company. It's 2 days. It's intense, but it's great. Highly, highly recommend that. Another way is to get a product coach. So Marty Kagan does this. There's other folks like Teresa Torres. There's a lady, I'm forgetting her last name, but Holly from H2R Product Science. So you could pay $1,500 and get 5 hours of like one-on-one sessions. So it's like literally you can bring them a problem you're working on and work through it together. And these are people who have done no bullshit products and helped companies grow. And this is how you're going to be able to level up your game, especially if you don't have that product leader that's really done it, been there before to help you level up. Or product school, go to product school. Much better investment than going to a conference in my opinion. Third would be focus on the outcomes and care less about what others think. Another good product management survival book is called The Subtle Art Not Giving a Fuck. Highly recommend. PM can be kind of a lonely job because you're telling a lot of people no, and you're making unpopular decisions at times. So, for example, at Cake, the work comp, when we launched the product, about a week in, we had more revenue, more customers, and a higher NPS than we thought. We like blew all our goals out of the water. So like CEO, super happy. Board, super happy. Then we did this retro, and our CTO literally wrote on the board like all these different, how are we doing on this, this, this? And one of them was prioritization. And literally everyone would just do a thumbs up, a medium, or a thumbs down. And when it got to prioritization, I was the only one who gave a damn thumbs up. The rest of the team was like, I don't know if we're doing so well in prioritization. I was like, what the hell, guys? Like, we just launched this. We're using NLP. Like, we're doing this cool thing. We blew past all our objectives. And then, like, so it bothered me at the time, but then I kind of reflected and was like, well, and then it's the marketing lady who, like, she didn't get her one set of meta tags for SEO or this or that. And so she, everyone has their own pet project they're always going to be asking you to do. And so a lot of times, your loyalty has to be to moving the business outcomes into the customers and not to the random marketing person with random marketing requests, right? There's always going to be random stakeholder with random requests. And you just kind of have to be comfortable with sometimes not being the most popular person or making unpopular decisions, again, all for the customer and for the business. A great shorthand for this is someone asks you why you made a decision. You can just say our product goal was X and we achieved it by doing X. Someone asks you why we're focused on what we're focused on. Our current goal is X and our strategy to achieve it is Y. That's our focus for right now. So again, it's all about loyalty to the customers and the business and less about appeasing stakeholders. The next advice around this is get out. A lot of product people, like when I was first a product manager, I thought I had to go to every damn meeting that had anything remotely to do with my product. I then realized like all I was doing was going to meetings. And so you've got to try to find a way to take yourself out of those meetings. Just don't go. Really nothing bad is going to happen. You don't have to be there for every single discussion about your product. Sometimes it's good if you're not, to let the other team just talk about it. Also don't feel the need to answer every single question. A lot of, especially the companies that were like an IT company, now they're trying to figure out how to create products that their customers actually want to use. They talk about this, well, what does the business want? We're here to serve the business, but as PMs, we're not servants of the business, right? Our job is to create products that work for our customers, respecting the constraints of the business, but we're not here just to serve the business. We're not here to make XYZ stakeholder happy. We're here to create an outcome for the business and for the customers. So again, another challenge, try to find 4 hours a day of heads down time. This is where like your deep thinking comes from, and the way to get ahead in product is to have a significant accomplishment. Like launch a new product or do a significant redesign that has a measurable outcome for your business. That when you put it on your resume, another company will look at that and they're going to want to hire you for that. It's not going to all the meetings. It's not answering like every single emails as soon as it comes in. It's not spending umpteen hours organizing tags in Jira. Right? It's the deep work to actually move your product and your business forward. As far as managing stakeholders, my favorite method is literally once a month, a lunch or a beer with anyone you think is important that has veto power or can be a pain in the ass if you're trying to launch something. Spending that time to develop a relationship will be more impactful than almost anything else you can do in terms of stakeholder management. And finally, last thing on this would be, I've made this mistake continually throughout my career, hopefully not anymore, but a lot of times you're in the midst of focusing on something and devs heads down on it and a problem comes up. And the initial kind of reaction is let's get a meeting together, let's figure out a solution, and let's put it into the backlog. And that's almost always a waste of time because by the time you actually get to that solution, you're going to have to refigure out the whole damn thing anyway because it's been a few months, if not a year. And so I think the initial reaction is problem. Let's figure out a solution. Everybody feels better, at least we have in the backlog. Usually it's a waste of time. So get out of that mode. Fourth, to try to be ruthless with your time along the same aspects. So literally every product team ever, they say we should spend more time with customers and we want to spend more time in discovery. When I got to Sunrun, I just missed it, but they'd done like a product management offsite with all the product managers. It's like a group of 20. So a large product management team, and their number one thing was, we want to spend more time with customers. We want to spend more time in discovery. So this kind of stuff doesn't happen unless you just make it happen. One of the good ways to do that is, there's an article by Chris Jones, who's also a managing member of Silicon Valley Product Group, about he has like a set of categories, and his exercise, if he's coaching you, is going to say, hey, I want you to take like literally 5 minutes, not more, and take your week and say how you spent your time. So not how you wanted to spend your time, but how did I actually spend my time this week across these categories? And almost universally, this is actually a photo of someone who went through the exercise with him, they're going to be spending a whole lot of time on everything else except for discovery, which is talking to customers, prototyping, figuring out what to build. And what you want to get to is how it looks over here, where half your time is on discovery activities. And so challenge for you all would be, spend that 5 minutes, categorize your week, and if you're not at half discovery, which I can almost guarantee most folks aren't, try to figure out how to get there. Try to figure out on what you can cut back on in order to make that happen. The other thing that I've done in my career that I've found tremendously helpful is to spend like at least like some time each week reading. Like, so whether that's a book, whether that's articles, Medium, whether that's hanging out in the product Slack communities and just hearing interesting combos, listening to podcasts, etc. That will be tremendously valuable to keep learning and keep adding skills. That's one of the reasons why I don't really care for stand-up. Like, what'd you do yesterday? I was like, I don't know, I read and thought about shit. But I definitely think that reading and adding to your skill set will be tremendously valuable for you. Finally, avoid what I'd call the common failure modes. So a lot of times it looks like this, especially if it's a small company. The CEO meets with customers every week and they're talking to customers all the time. They hire a PM. The PM doesn't talk to customers at all or hardly does. And then the PM is theoretically supposed to be making decisions, but they haven't done their homework. They don't know anything to make those decisions. And so they get relocated to what I call backlog administrator, where you're spending most of your time not as a product manager, but as a project manager, doing shit in Jira and just carrying out the CEO's mandates. So doing your homework is tremendously valuable. And along these same lines, I'm continually amazed at how many PMs don't understand their company's business model. And so I put a Chromecast up there because have you all done an interview where they asked you the question like, tell me a product you like and like why you like it? And most people have really shitty answers. They're like, I like Uber, I like the iPhone because it's easy to use. And it's like, that's not what they're looking for. I put Chromecast because I feel like there was one time I got hired for a job just because I answered the question with Chromecast, but I related it back to how, yeah, you know, it seems like it's just like a cool thing. Like, oh, I can now put on my computer what's on the TV. But actually, like, if you think about Google's business model, it's ad-supported consumer services like YouTube. And guess what? If you can watch YouTube on your TV, you're going to watch a lot more YouTube. So it's like highly aligned to their business model. But a lot of folks don't think about it that way. So a great way to learn your company's business model and have it down is to do just Google Lean Canvas and to try to fill one out and then talk about it with your manager. One, I think they'll be stoked that you took the initiative. Two, it is a really good way to learn your business. It's like 9 categories of what your business does, like your channels, your go-to-market, differentiation, customer segments, costs, etc. But it's incredibly important to learn your business, and I'm continually amazed at how many folks like just don't understand what their business does. So failure modes, we don't want to turn into the Sonic people on the right, the order takers. The two most common failure modes for PMs. You escalate everything to the CEO or head of product, right? That makes you a middle person, a middleman, not a leader. Again, it's because most folks haven't done their homework. They're not equipped to make those decisions, so you end up just escalating up. The other is you call a meeting with the group of stakeholders. That's designed by committee. That yields predictably poor results. And again, we want to think of our PMs as leading the product, meaning going out and getting the data, acquiring the necessary knowledge to make product decisions, not just escalating it up every time. And if you keep doing this, your dev team will start to see you as a middleman. That question about would you keep your PM if you could just take their salary as budget, and they say no, it's likely the PMs aren't providing any value. They're just acting as kind of project managers and funneling stuff through Jira. Again, good goal is to be recognized as an expert across your customers, across your business, competitors, industry, and the product itself. Underrated PM skill, being able to give a hell of a demo of the product that you have. Again, a lot of things. At DeVito, we had like this really complex electronic health record product. We used to make like your first month there, like you would just, your goal at the end of the month is to be able to give a killer demo. Because it was really hard to understand. And if you can give a killer demo, that's again another way to inspire confidence in you as a PM and to evangelize your product to the organization. Part of what makes a good demo is not just like showing the features and what it does, but explaining the rationale behind the decisions. So learning your product in terms of that, a lot of times you'll walk into a company, all these decisions have been made, a lot of shit looks weird, like who the hell would do this? Why did they do that? There's usually a why behind it. Go find that out so you can at least explain it when you're giving the demo.